Now it's time to talk about copywriting. Now, copywriting in and of itself is kind of a boring topic. It's writing, and some people don't care to write, they don't like to write, but it's very important for your marketing, the words that you use, the words that sell, because all those words that are properly used in marketing are what get people excited, emotional, and essentially has them pull out their credit card to buy your products and services. So you need to become decent at copywriting or hire someone that is. But for you as the business owner, you definitely need to learn at least the basics of copywriting. So in this module, I'm going to give you a crash course on copywriting, give you a few tips, some tricks, some basic kind of templates that you can use, and hopefully it'll shortcut your learning curve for becoming a better copywriter. Now, copywriting in and of itself is a very, very kind of extensive topic. There's a lot that you can learn about it, and you should be learning all the time, not only about marketing techniques for the internet as you grow your business and just grow your education and training, but you should constantly try to educate yourself to become a better copywriter. Whether you're writing copy in your own business or whether you're just editing it and reviewing the copy that someone else writes, it's good for you to know this stuff. So essentially, copywriting is absolutely critical to your digital marketing success because it's the words that sell. It doesn't matter if you're making videos that sell your products and services or any other format, it's still the words. So in order to create an effective video, you're going to have a script which is made up of the words that someone's going to say in a presentation or on camera. So it's still copywriting. Now, if you want to become a successful online marketer, you got to become good at this stuff. That's just how it is. Those are the facts. That's just the state of the process, the kind of underlying thing that makes marketing work. It's the copy. So where will you use copy? Well, I'll go ahead and spoil it for you. You're going to use it everywhere. You're going to use it on all the pages of your website, your opt-in form pages. So in order to get someone to opt in and give you permission to market to them, to email them, you're going to need to use words on that page that gets them interested in giving you their email address. Of course, you'll need to give away something in exchange for that. So here's something you need to realize and even make a note of. You have to sell the free stuff just as much as you do the stuff that's for sale, that people actually pay for it. So what I mean by that, when you're just trying to get someone to give you their email address for free, to get something for free, you still have to sell it. You still have to convince them to do it. So the email address is like the currency. So they're buying your opt-in thing using their email as currency, but you still have to sell the opt-in. So you need to use the right words that will convince people to give their email address. Now you're also going to use copy in emails to your list. What you write to your list and how you write those emails has everything to do with if they do what you ask them to do. If they click a link to check out an affiliate product, or click a link and buy your product, or click a link and go to check out one of your social media posts and then share it or like it or do something with it, and we're going to cover that when we get to traffic recycling, or whether they click a link and they just go to a survey and give you some answers to questions you're asking to try to learn more about your market. Anything that you're asking your list to do or you want them to do, you're going to have to use good copy. So posts you make for social media, the better you are at writing copy, the better you are at what? Well, the better you'll be at driving traffic from social media. And we're going to get into social media strategy later on in this course. But all of it ties together. Your AdWords, Facebook ads, and any ads period, you have to learn how to write good copy. Your sales page or your sales video, and of course HTML title tags for SEO purposes, which we're going to get into in this module. And then, of course, really revisit it when we get to the SEO section of this course. Now, here are some quick tips for creating effective copy. Tell a story. This is a tried and true method that has worked for many, many years and makes up good, effective copy. Tell a story. So if you write an email to your list, and let's say you teach real estate investing, tell that story about how the first house you ever bought to flip, you bought this rundown house that was in foreclosure for $54,000, and you went to the auction by mistake. You were really driving down the street to look at another house that was for sale, or even going over to a friend's house. You saw the sign posted that there was an auction today. You stopped just to check it out because you saw 3 or 4 people crowded around an auctioneer. You wanted to know what it was all about. And there weren't many bids on the house, and you thought it was worth at least 50 grand, so you bid and you bought the house. And that's how you accidentally got into real estate investing. You know, I'm just making this up on the fly, but it's a compelling story. And then after you bought the house, you went in there and the house had bats and it was infested and the first floor was flooded. But you knew a guy that could maybe come in and clean that stuff up, and then you learn how to manage a budget and so on and so forth. So telling a story of any kind related to your business, related to your experience, related to your life is very, very powerful, and it gets people to tune in and give you their attention, and then ultimately has them ready when you're able to offer a proper solution or product or service that's good for their needs that they may buy and then do business with your company. Use controversy or intrigue in your copy to have better copy. If you write about something that's kind of controversial, or at least something that's really interesting, you'll get more people to engage with the copy and to read on and to read basically what you're writing. The old AIDA formula holds true for copy because it's the old formula for marketing, period. Attention, interest, desire, action. The first thing you have to do is get someone's attention. So the way that you do that is with a great headline, which we're going to talk about headlines, and then you pull them in, and then you build their interest. That's why storytelling is important. You build up their interest. They're kind of learning more about whatever it is that you're teaching or talking about, and then you learn to create the desire. You talk about the solution that you have for sale, a product or service that you sell in your company, why they need it, and you're building up the desire that they have for wanting that thing, and then ultimately you lead them to take action, which is actually making the purchase. You can use that same formula, of course, for getting people to opt into like a free newsletter or to get a special report, right? You get their attention by having this headline, 5 different ways you can make money tomorrow from real estate investing in your own town. Boom, there's a headline, gets their attention. Then when they see the page, they may see some bullets or things like 3 secrets you must know before you get into house flipping, 5 ways to save over $5,000 on each project you work with, whatever. That's building the interest. And then the desire is get the step-by-step guide that shows you how to do everything less than 30 days. And then the call to action, give me your email address, download the guide instantly. The proper formula, or at least a simple flow, is simply, here's who I am and here's what I can do for you. So you end up introducing yourself, and we're going to talk more about the flow and kind of a structure for copy, but you essentially tell people who you are and what your credibility is and why you're in a position to help them. And then here's what you can do for them as far as what services or products or services that your business offers. Now, the who I am can be not maybe you personally, but could just be your company. If you make a certain product or sell a certain product, that's not about you as a personality, but that's the basic kind of flow of it is, here's who I am, or here's who the company is, and here's what we can do for you. You want to chain your thoughts together when you're writing copy, so you want it to flow. So you get their attention. It's the AIDA formula like a slide. So you get their attention, and you make it easy for them to want to continue reading or going down the slide to the next section. So you kind of chain things together. Don't have things abruptly, end, and then all of a sudden you just start listing like features and benefits of a product. You kind of have to have it all flow together, and it will keep people reading. You want to use scarcity whenever possible. It's one of the most powerful elements of copy and marketing. So if you're offering a product that maybe is for a limited time for the sale, or if there's limited inventory, or you're teaching an online class, there are only so many spots, anywhere you can use scarcity, that's great. So scarcity typically implies when there is a shortage of the thing being sold, or when there's some kind of time deadline where the offer is only effective till X. That's the power of coupons, right? Like, that's why people clip coupons for the newspaper and they say, hey, I can save 20% off. But what do all coupons have? Well, they have an expiration date. So people know they have to rush to the store and use the coupon before it expires. That's scarcity. So scarcity is very powerful. You want to write short, easy to read fragments. Don't write long run-on sentences. Use short sentences and shorter words and simple vocabulary. Also, write like you talk. So if you're having a kind of just a casual conversation with someone, that's kind of how you want to write and communicate to them. That's how you create effective copy. So I have 2 very, very valuable and important recommendations for you if you want to become really good at copy beyond this little crash course that I'm going to teach you. The first resource is the Gary Halbert Letter at thegaryhalbertletter.com. Gary unfortunately passed away, I guess 7-8 years ago in his late 60s. But he's one of the greatest copywriters that's ever lived on planet Earth. He's just an incredible marketer, incredible wordsmith, and he was just a great copywriter, and he was involved in all kinds of businesses. And Gary was kind of a mentor of mine that I learned from. I was studying Gary, gosh, when I was probably 12 or 13, 14 years old, when I was learning about mail order. This is before the internet marketing stuff took off. And a lot of guys from the mail order kind of direct response industry, they evolved into the internet when the internet took off, because the internet is direct response, like placing an ad, having people write for more information or to do something else, and then you send them more about what you sell and then hopefully make the sale. Well, that's the basics of direct response, and that's what Gary was so good at. If you don't know who Gary Halbert is, one of the things that made him famous was that he did all kinds of campaigns and did all kinds of things that he marketed and sold, and also worked with clients. But one of the things that he did is he had this coat of arms campaign. So he was essentially, I don't remember what it was. I think it was like a printout or certificate for like whatever family. So like, let's say if you do research, if your last name is Smith and you research the Smith family, there's like a coat of arms, like a crest that goes with each family name or most family names. And so Gary was sending a letter that would sell the coat of arms, like printout or kind of almost like artwork. And he was so smart, so he would mail all the people with the last name Smith, and it was a letter and offer about the Smith coat of arms. And then he would do the same thing for the last name Wilson, and it had like the picture of the Wilson coat of arms, and the letter was all targeted towards if your last name was Wilson. So it almost seemed like his business was only selling the Wilson coat of arms, but he was doing it for all the major last names. And so he sent, I don't know how many millions and millions of direct mail letters across the United States at that time, selling this coat of arms thing, and he made a fortune from it and became very, very successful. But if you go to the GaryHalbertLetter.com, is an archive. His sons have kind of, for his legacy, left up his website, and he was writing like a free newsletter for years, and you can find it online at that website. Just read some of his old issues and just appreciate the words and the way he writes. It'll make you a better copywriter. And he was just so good with words, and he would just write things that would just stir up emotions, and he was a great guy. He was a crazy character, but he really was a great guy, and he taught so many people how to write copy and to make a lot of money with words. So I highly recommend that you check him out. You know, one of the other things that Gary did, I'll throw this out real quick, if you don't know about this, that kind of Gary was well known for. So when Gary was single and he was basically like looking for a girlfriend, he took out, I think it was either one or two pages, but it was a full page ad, like in a newspaper. And he essentially wrote a sales letter that sold himself. And it was just saying all these things about himself, why he was a great partner and why he'd be a good boyfriend and why someone should, essentially have him as a partner and want to be his, have him to be their man, to, speaking to a woman. And so he wrote all this stuff about himself, but he was honest. He listed his negatives. He listed the type of woman he was looking for, who he didn't want. And while it may seem crazy and desperate, he got letters and photos of women, tons and tons of them, that responded to this ad. And it was just an interesting thing that he did. But that was the kind of guy he was. He did crazy stuff like that. I taught a seminar, internet marketing seminar, in 2004. And it was pretty much the only one I ever did. It was just me on stage for 3 days teaching. And actually, in the recordings of that workshop became my original Traffic Secrets program. And Gary was in attendance. He came to that workshop to attend because he wanted to learn more about internet marketing. And if you go to the GaryHalbertLetter.com, there's one of the newsletters. He mentions me. It's titled John Reese, the 500-Pound Gorilla, or something like that. And Gary says some very flattering words about me after he had just attended my workshop. So I always appreciated that, especially because he was a mentor of mine, someone I had learned from for years. But anyways, I highly recommend you learn from Gary. Gary has some really great stuff for free on that site, and you can just read his old newsletter archive and just get some ideas for copy even to use for your business. Now, the second recommendation I have is to study John Carlton. John Carlton is also another one of the best copywriters in history, and he teaches copywriting stuff. And Gary and John kind of grew up together. They were really good friends. John's still alive, and John's a friend of mine. I've met him and became friends with him, and he's just a very talented copywriting teacher. His site is marketingrebel.com. Unlike Gary's site and what Gary was doing with his free newsletter, John, he posts a lot of tips and things on how to become a better copywriter, but he also has some really great products I highly recommend. I don't make any money from it. I think he has one called the Simple Writing System, and then he has another one's like the Secrets of Becoming a Kick-Ass Copywriter or something like that. But go to his site. If you want to further your education, I highly recommend you check out some of John's products. He's a great teacher, and he's an amazing copywriter. And John has worked on many different projects. I'm trying to think of the one that he's probably most famous for that you may or may not know of. I think he wrote a sales letter. It was called The One-Legged Golfer, and it was selling a golf product, and it was telling a story about how this guy walks up to the tee and he only had one leg, but he knocked the crap out of the ball and hit this drive super, super far. And so it was telling the secret of how this guy was able to do it with only one leg and how anyone could learn to hit drives farther. But go to John's site. You'll find some really interesting stuff. But I recommend those two resources as a place for you to go to learn how to become a better copywriter, because copywriting is very, very important.